Have you ever felt like your energy just isn't where it needs to be when you're creating? Today's guest is here to fix that for you. I want you to meet Ang Barnard, one of my favorites, a communication consultant, keynote speaker, career coach, and expert in teaching people how to elevate their energy before they create anything. With her proven strategies, Ange has helped thousands of people transition from doing work they love by focusing on their energy and their vision. She's trained leaders from every branch of the U.S. military, public officials, and corporate executives worldwide to harness the power of intentional communication and create a meaningful impact. Ange also hosts the Intentional Mind podcast, one I never miss, and a global top ranked show where she guides listeners to intentionally design lives and careers they love. When Ange is not inspiring others, you can find her hiking with her husband and her baby boy, exploring new places, or unwinding at her peaceful lake home in Indiana. So, friends, get ready to learn why your energy matters most when you're creating content and how to align your vision with your work. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Oh, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I am not going to delay. We're going to jump right in because I want you to share all of the bits about your background and how you came so passionate about helping people live and create with intention, because that is one of the things that I adore about you is like everything you talk about is with intention, and it can be something that we really pull back on in our lives and just kind of do the things without thinking intentionally about them.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I used to be that person that I felt like I was just going through the motions. And, in my career, I felt like I was just checking boxes, just not really feeling engaged in what I was doing. And this passion for helping people intentionally design their lives, learn how to communicate more intentionally, just be intentional with their energy in general, came from me not being intentional with my energy. It was where I was moving up in a role and I saw people around me who like were supposed to be my mentors, my leaders, who really just weren't engaged in their life. And they were just like counting down the hours until they could go home. And it was like, or they were like,
Mhm.
oh, so many more years until I get to retire, so many more days until the weekend. It was like they were counting down their lives. I felt
Mhm.
like, wait, is this where I'm headed? Because these are what my mentors are doing right now. This is how they're living their life. It's not very intentionally. It's like literally counting down the hours of your life. And so that really woke me up and I was like, I don't want that to be my life. And then I started really getting into coaching, learning more about communicating, learning more about how our energy works. And once I started learning these strategies to get our own energy up higher, to influence other people, I started teaching that to other people and I started helping other people transition into careers that they really love. And then it's kind of branched out since then where I've been teaching people different
Mhm.
skills in communication around energy and influence. And it's not just about influencing like other people, it's also about influencing yourself, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's also about looking at your own energy and like what's happening there when you are about to go do something and the connection between
Mhm.
your energy and the success that you create in your life.
Yes, and I completely agree with you. Uh, so why do you think that elevating your energy, particularly before you're creating content, is important? Because this is the Content Systems for Growth podcast, and content is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I know it's essential to have good energy when we're creating our content.
Yeah, because everything is energy. Like this is not just I always say this is not just some weird woo-woo thing. This is science. Every single thing is made up of energy. Energy is contagious. So whatever energy you show up with, you create with is going to go into that product. It's going to go to that service. It's going to have a ripple effect from there. So you want to be really intentional about the energy you're putting into something. And if you really think about this, like the days that you feel your best or you're working on some kind of content and you just feel excited and you're just higher energy, that thing tends to get a better result. Even for people, and I've heard this from my clients, like that will do, let's say, a video online. When they show up and they post a little video clip and they're sharing and speaking from their heart and they're feeling good, that video gets watched a lot more. It's because the
Mm.
energy behind it is different. versus having the energy of you're showing up and you feel like you have to do this. You feel like you're back in that energy that I talked about before. You're in this check the box because it's on my list and I just need to get it done, even though you're not feeling your best. And what people tend to do is they try to force themselves through something with that kind of energy, which what I recommend is you stop and you realize, like, my energy isn't where I want it to be. What are some simple things that I can do right now to shift it up before I go out and I create this thing or do that thing? Because I know my energy is contagious. I know it's going to go into this product. Just like I hear people talk about how, like, they might go to a certain restaurant, mom and pop, cute
Mhm.
restaurant, and they love going there because, like, they know the person who makes the food and the person seems to really love cooking, and it's like, "That food is so good." That's an energy thing. They're bringing that
Mm.
loving energy into their creation. So it's just something for us to think about is, like, how can we show up, bring our energy higher, and then create from that place versus trying to create from a place where I need to just check this off my list or I need to force this to happen.
Oh, I agree with you, and then I'm just curious because I always find that, like, I'll track my moods or when I have the most energy,
Ooh.
and that's when I try and really create my content. So do you find that for yourself as well?
Ooh, that's a really good strategy is to align with your energy, when your energy is highest for you to create. And that is something that I do as far as when I plan when I'm doing content creation. I try to do it earlier in the day because I know that that's when my energy tends to be best. Is if I've already poured like everything out into everybody all day, did all the things for my son, my husband, and it's the end of the day, and then I'm like trying to force myself to create a podcast. That
Mhm.
doesn't go very well. But if I do it when I feel my best, that seems to flow. It's easier. I've also seen times where I'm trying to force creation and it's like I gotta re-record something like 15 times. And at that point in time, I'm like, Ange, like, stop. Like, this is an energy thing. Go realign your energy and then we'll come back to this. And then things just flow easier when I'm able to do that.
Oh, so do you have, like, a process or a simple practices that you go do to actually realign your energy before you come back to create again, or you just put it off for another day?
Well, sometimes it's a matter of like like I always like to ask myself, like, what do I need? And really sit with that.
Mm,
And sometimes it's like you need to sleep. Like sleep is there's things that are energetic influencers. That's what you need to think about when it
mm,
comes to your energy. These are things like physically, if you didn't get enough sleep, your energy isn't going to be that great. If you're sick, there's environmental influencers. Like let's say, darkness in your space that can kind of bring your energy down.
mhm.
Same thing with light, bringing it up. Cold, feeling just anything that in your environment that may be an issue. Social things, scents. Think about your senses, things that you're seeing. So what you really want to do is think about how can you get those physical and environmental things in alignment in a way how can you design them in a way that gives you your best energy? So, for
Mhm.
example, for me, even before I came on the call today, I've been truly, like, dealing with a sickness, I've been congested and not, like, feeling my best physically,
Mhm.
but I knew there were some other things I could do to raise my energy that I'm used to doing, and some of these things are like, I lit a candle because it gives me that cozy vibe, and it puts me into that creative mode. That's just something that works for me. I did a jumping on my little mini trampoline with a song that makes me feel good, and it's only, like, 2 minutes, and this is the thing, like, this stuff doesn't have to take forever because some people might be like, "Well, I don't have all that time before I go create something." If you think about yoga, when I used to practice yoga regularly, we would have people hold positions for 2 minutes or longer because that's when their nervous system changed. It changes the hormones that you are then generating, just like power posing does. If you hold a power pose and then after 2 minutes, your confidence starts to increase, those confidence hormones are released. You can do that for yourself now before you create content. If you're like, "Oh, my energy's kind of low, I'm not feeling my best." Well, maybe you do something physically, like me jumping on a mini trampoline, or maybe you do
Mhm.
something where you open up your body, you hold yourself in a position for 2 minutes, you change the hormones that are being released there. Lately for me, I've been really into cold plunging and never thought I would be that person because I hate being cold. But I
Yeah.
noticed such a difference in, like, how I feel, and it's such a quick shift because it's, like, 2 to 3 minutes that I'm doing this, And it helps me so much. So even on those days where it's like, well, I don't have a lot of time to do my workout, my typical workout, I could easily do that and it takes 2 minutes. So I want people to
Mm,
start thinking about, is there a 2 minute thing for you? Because what works well for me for my energy may not be your choice. Like maybe the goal lunging isn't your choice or the jumping on the trampoline isn't your choice. But there's something that you already do that raises your energy. So what is that thing? And can you create a mini version of that for yourself before you decide to create? Can you create a little ritual for yourself that raises your energy? Because you know that that your energy is going to go into whatever you create and it's going to have a ripple effect. It's kind of like I always quote Moshe Gersh, who was on my podcast, who has a TEDx talk about unconditional happiness. And he says the energy of the creator is in the created. And I love that. I think about that all the time because I can just see, I'm like, yeah, that's so true. Like when I show up and I get my energy right and it's higher, whatever I create, it just does better. Like it serves people better. It attracts more attention in positive ways. And I know it's because of my energy that I put into it.
oh, that's so good. So, I'm curious then, because those are all great suggestions, but for, like, somebody that maybe not familiar with energy or really tapping into their energy or giving it any second thought, like, is there anything that, like, be common energy blockers that they might be having that they could maybe try to be a little bit more creative?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest energy blockers when it comes to creating content is this fear of like, what will people think about this? And this is what causes
Mm,
people to obsess and try to perfect it or make it look like somebody else's thing. But then it becomes no longer in alignment with their like a higher energy. Now it's a lower energy you're creating it from because you're doing it from this place of I'm trying to impress. I'm attached to this result. That's a
mhm,
low energy that's being generated. But when you create from a higher energy place of where it's like, I'm doing this because it's fun. It feels good. I like this. I want to talk about this. This is what I'm
mhm,
interested in right now. This is what I know can help people because I had a bunch of people ask me about this. So I just thought rather than complicating it, I'm just going to jump in and create it right now. Like it's a different energy that you are creating from. And you got to check in with yourself because I noticed like I have earlier this week, I was creating content and I was so in my head about it, like trying to get the right hook written, trying to make it have the right kind of
mm,
lesson. And I could feel this controlling energy showing up around it. Trying it was almost like, let me get people to like, let me try to get them to be hooked in. And like it was just like this controlling energy. And it was like, ew, like that's not the energy I want to show up from. But what I wanna
mhm,
show up from is, like, this feels good to me and it's fun, and I'm not attached. If no one watches it, I don't care 'cause it's fun for me to share it. And truly for me,
mhm.
those are the things that do the best in my work. Like, if it's a post that I'm creating, if it's a video, if it's a podcast, the ones that perform the best are the ones where I felt my best. And I wasn't trying to control, I wasn't trying to impress. I was doing something because it genuinely felt good to me.
Oh, I agree with you, because there's so many times where I've forced something and felt uncomfortable, like, talking about that because I was like, "Oh, this is a topic where I should talk about because it falls into
Yeah.
alignment." Actually just embracing the things that I love to talk about, um, even if they don't maybe fall into my content pillar. Do
Yeah,
you
see,
know what
that's
I'm saying?
see, I love that you're saying that because even in the language that you're using, like, "Oh, I should do this," and it's very heady language, like, where it's like, "Yeah, I should be doing it in this way because this is what everybody else is telling me that to do and needs to align with this system and my own model and this," and you know how, like, even just the sound of that, it's very, like, heady, logical brain. It's like, now we've lost the creative because those are different energy levels, and the
Mhm,
creativity, that's gonna be at a higher energy state, not this state of, like, I'm in my head, I should do it this way, I should follow this rule book, because let's be real, when it comes to our creativity, there is no rule book. That's not even what creativity is. It's about you being flowy and free and just creating and from a place that feels good. Of course, there's, systems are gonna serve you, like, hands down, but you can tell when you're
mhm,
showing up with this energy of, like, I'm working within my system and it feels good, or I'm trying to force this thing to fit in and do it this way because it's what everybody else is telling you what to do. You know the difference based on how it feels. So sometimes people ask me, like, how do I know if I'm creating from a higher or low energy place? It's like, oh, you know, like, you know, when your energy is low. And if you feel
Mhm.
resistance in your body around it, if you feel like you're trying to force it, if you feel like it's not coming out easily, that means that you need to shift the energy before you create that thing. Now, it's kind of
Mhm.
like when I used to work with a lot of my career coaching clients, they would I have a lot of my clients focus on building relationships and reaching out and doing these scary conversations because it is uncomfortable reaching out to people. And
Mhm.
what I have found is that when they're in their head, when they're sitting there and they're overthinking it and they're trying to type up the email or about to call someone or get on a Zoom call or whatever, and they're just in that state of like, "Oh, I should say this, I should do," and that energy is building up. It doesn't usually lead to something great when they talk to that person, but what I have them do instead is say, "Hey, don't be doing that before the call or before you reach out. Go have fun. Go meet with a friend and laugh. Watch some funny videos on your phone. Do a little dance. Get your energy up because that way, once you approach that conversation, you're gonna be higher energy and it's not as complicated because we've all had those moments where we've had to make a phone call and we just sat there and we thought about it too much. We're all like awkward and it's uncomfortable. It's like when you're most
Mhm.
brave and you're most creative when you are having fun already. Like I try to make like hard phone calls or like things I'm scared to do. I try to do it when my energy is the highest. When I'm already having fun or I'm around people that I love, like then I feel like I just because I'm at a different energy level, I am more brave than what I would be if I'm sitting there by myself in my head, you know?
I love that because there is so often, I mean, especially as entrepreneurs, because we're entrepreneurs and we're running a business and we can get so in our head. And those are the things that hold us back is that
Or
headiness, that second guessing, questioning, just feeling overwhelmed and uninspired. And that's great. Like that starting it from a place where you're already at a high energy and just keeping it
yeah,
going.
because think about it, for everyone that's listening right now, and entrepreneurs, we value work, like we're doing the work to create the lives that we want. We're already doing that. But if you really think about it, the
Mhm.
things that have come into your life that you love and you treasure the most, did you really have to work that hard to make that be? If you really think about it, no. I mean, there's so many opportunities I've gotten in my life when it comes to my business, like some of my most favorite clients, I don't feel like I worked that hard to get. It was because somebody else
Mhm.
recommended them. It was because I made someone else feel good just talking to me because they liked my energy and it led to this opportunity, which led to this next opportunity. Meeting my husband, it wasn't like I didn't work really hard to meet my husband and I love him so much, gracing my life. Like I feel
Mhm.
like there's a lot of things that have come into our life that we didn't have to force, we didn't it just came in, and I think it was related to how our energy was, like, I think if we go back, there's tons of examples that we can pull from our lives. So it's
Mhm.
just a
Mhm.
reminder, like, if you feel like you have to force it, you don't.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things as you're saying that, it brings me back. So I was on your Clarify Your Vision a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
and looking at that, like when I was trying to look at my vision for this year, like that was one of the main things that I was like paying attention to. Like, how do I want to feel as I'm going into this next year? Because so often, and I attended last year, this year was so much easier because I could actually think through and I'd gone through a whole year of trying to intentionally create and clarify where I wanted to go because otherwise I have a tendency to get completely pulled off track and will create
Mhm.
content for somebody else or I'll do this product for somebody else and do these one things. But it's so important to actually clarify where you're going and what your vision is for your life, not just
Yes.
for business. Not only
Oh,
when you're creating content, but everything to make sure you're in alignment with just all of those things.
yes. Oh, and that's a good point because I think our energy is also acts, I believe, as like our GPS system to tell us if we're on track or not. And so we're creating content in a way where it's out of alignment and we know because it feels resistant, or maybe you're creating content for someone else and it's like this feels uncomfortable because maybe it's a sign that you should be doing more stuff for your own self. Like, so there's checking into like what are those feelings and like why are you feeling that way? Because I can say like when you know your vision, because this is the other thing too when it comes to getting your energy right around what you're creating, your energy is going to be higher when you know that what you are creating is in alignment with your vision. So, but you got to
Mhm.
check in and see like what is your vision? Because I've seen a lot of people, and even with entrepreneurs, that are not clear about the direction they want to go. So they're like, I oh my man, I have like it makes me cringe inside. I know so many of my friends who are like creating content just to create like to I don't wanna say just to create, because I think there's value in that, like, to be just creative to as an outlet, but doing it for
Mhm.
because somebody said, "Hey, you should be posting on Instagram 3 times a week," or "You should be" or "every single day," or whatever the numbers are, throw the numbers out there, and they're like, "Well, I got my post done for today, I did this and did this," they're checking box, but it's not with intention. It's not like it's not in alignment with their vision. They're just like creating something. It's like, yeah, it's something they weren't talking about, but it's like not leading to where they want to go. It's very different when you create something with intention behind it. It's just like
Mhm.
with the creative energy from a higher place with intention behind it. It's like, ooh, that's a good recipe for really creating success in your life. So I think even for people
Mhm.
listening, it's like if you don't have a clear vision of what it is that you really want to be doing with your business, then it's going to be really hard for you to create content, I believe, that does very well for you because you're not clear about where you want to go. And what happens is when you're not clear about where you want to go, that energy is generated to everybody else. And then they don't even
Mhm.
know what you want because they're catching that confusion energy. So I think
Mhm.
checking in on that energy and being like, "Ooh, like, how do I shift that?" If you want any energy that you're feeling that is not serving you, it's just a sign, it's just information that there's work that needs to be done in that space so that you can be the person that creates from a higher energy place. I feel like that ideally, that it'd be awesome if everybody had that on their vision board. But you wanna be the person who wants
Mhm.
to create from a high energy place. Why? Because it feels good to you, and it leads to really good results to you, and this is the best way that you can serve people is with that higher energy.
Because I think so often we get caught up in, like I mentioned before, the shoulds, and then when we're in that, we're just creating to create and to create something,
Yeah,
and it's so unintentional, and it's not serving us, and it's not serving the people that we want to, because I always think my mind always goes to, like, your path that you want people to take. Because if you're an unintentionally creating content just because you think that's the content you should create, but it doesn't actually lead them anywhere or to the product that or your services, because, I mean, we're in business, so we actually need to be creating paths
yeah,
to how people can work with us, and if you're not intentionally creating that path for people, they're not gonna get there.
yeah, 100%, and you're not serving them well, like, for example, like, oh, I failed at this so many times where I I try to keep a lot of balls juggling like we all do, and I'm doing all these things, and it's not sometimes it's not as
Mhm,
intentional as I'd like it to be. Like, this is like I'm like my own greatest teacher around, like, I'm helping people with this, but I'm the person that needs it too, and that's why I started doing this work around intentionality. Um,
mhm,
but my point is that you can just yeah, you can get to these points where you're creating all this content, but it doesn't lead to something. Like, for example, I would do a speaking event or I do a workshop and people would want to work with me. Like,
mhm,
they'd be like, what's the next step? But I didn't have a next step created because I
mhm,
wasn't intentionally creating my content. It goes back to my energy because I bet you when I created the thing in the first place, I didn't do it from a right energy place. I probably did it from this like, oh, rushy kind of energy place. I just got to get this thing out there. And I didn't very intentionally think about, I want to do it in this way, in the best way, with my higher energy as I create it. And then I'm
mm,
going to offer this next thing that feels good to me. And I think sometimes we don't do that because we start to act like, "Oh, because it has to be all together, it has to be perfect. We have to do it like some other guru I found online who does it." When really, honestly, you can just do it so simply. What I have found is, like, stop complicating stuff, and, like, let it be easy for yourself. Like, I have created some of my favorite programs were ran off of Google Drive. And no one really cared. They just, like, wanted to show up and be around each other and have good energy in that space. They didn't care about all the other stuff that I felt like I needed to learn, and that's what can hold people back is like, "Oh, well, I have to have this funnel in place. I have to have all this other stuff in place." And although long term that stuff is going to serve you, but don't let
Mhm.
that be a reason why you don't create something, because I think just thinking about all of that stuff can overwhelm you and bring your energy down to the point
Mhm.
that you won't even create something that could serve people.
Mhm.
And when these people are waiting in
Mhm.
line for the next thing for you to create, but you're too busy complicating it. When it's like, hey, all they want is just to be in your energy. You know, like I gotta remind myself of that all the time. That's why my word of this year is ease. And I constantly ask myself, I'm like, Ange, how can you let this be easy? Because there's so many things. I wanna target this because it's coming up in my mind. I think there's listeners, you can probably relate to this, where you put something off because you feel
Mhm.
like, let's say someone reaches out for you something and you're like, "Okay, yeah, I can meet with you next week at this time." And I will find
Mhm.
myself pushing it off, like procrastinating or, even or creating something, and that's a low energy thing. Because what I have seen is people who create really amazing results in their life that I admire, they take action very quickly. Like, I had someone reach out to me and he said, "Hey, I wanna talk to you about helping with this speaking thing, and hey, I'm free right now if you are." And I was like, "What?" Like, I don't take action like that quick normally. I found myself wanting to be like, "I'll meet with you next week on this date," when I could meet with him sooner. But there was an energy thing that was happening in me where I was kind of self-sabotaging and procrastinating. And I think I see
Mhm.
that a lot with entrepreneurs too, where it's like you're not taking action quickly, because that's the other thing about energy. When you feel good, take the dang action. If it's gonna take you 2 minutes to respond or do something, flow with that energy. Don't be like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait until X time," because 'cause you're already showing up from a low energy place by putting it off, and who knows how you're gonna feel that day. So lately, what I've been adopting is, like, taking quicker action, and I've seen that around just a lesson that I've been learning around people I admire. They're quick to take action. They don't
Mhm.
they don't, like, get into the low energy place. They're like, "Oh, I feel good about this. I feel confident right now. Let's go." Like, I wanna do more of that.
Uh-huh.
And even, like, systems, like
Mhm.
be okay with, like, not being attached. I'm all about being intentional and unattached. I say that all the time. So, for example, is I suggest time blocking. I suggest being intentional with your time. And I also suggest
Mhm.
paying attention to your energy. So let's say on Tuesdays, I decided that was my content creation time. But let's say it's Thursday today and I just got a hint of inspiration and I feel like I need to grab my mic or write this little post thing. Do it. Act on
Mhm.
that energy right now. Because I think sometimes,
Mhm.
like, God telling you, it's like a download, and it's like, "Oh, this is for you." Like, take advantage of it and, like, give it out when you feel good versus getting in your head and being like, "Nope, I'm not gonna act on that until Thursday." It's like, no, be intentional, of course, but also be unattached and be open to those downloads and acting quickly on them.
Mhm. Oh, and I think that's essential, and one of the things that I'll help people, like, when they're planning count or their calendar or having troubles, like, fitting things in is and I do it for myself, is I put in what I call a fire block, and that fire block of time is where you can shift, like, if you're feeling very inspired in the morning to do something, but you had something else scheduled during that time block that you needed to do, just taking that one particular time block and shifting it down into your
Ooh, I
fire
love
block
that.
so that you can work on what it is that you wanted to work on, because
Yeah,
I think that we Go ahead.
I love that, Michelle. I just had to, like, interrupt you because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just love that you're thinking that way," because this is an energy thing too. You're intentional, but you're playing off the energy. I do that with my meal planning too. I will pick the dinners I'm gonna have all week, and I'm like, Monday this, Tuesday this, Wednesday that. And then I'll be like Monday and I'll be like, I don't really want meatloaf today, but I'll have the tacos, but that's on Taco Tuesday. Let me switch these and I move them around. So there's an intentionality there already, but it's also like I'm allowing myself the space to play. And I think that if you look at even how kids learn, we gotta remember there's a kid in all of us. Like, how they learn best is this, with order, like having a space
Mhm.
that has order, but also with a lot of play. So how can you bring those 2 components in your life now, and even in your content creation process? Order
Mhm.
and play. And that order and play, I feel like that's high energy stuff there.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Okay, so there you go. Those are our 2 pieces of advice to create our energy with intention, right? Order and
Yeah.
play. Yeah. And because that play gives you the wiggle room that you need, but yet your order keeps everything flowing so that you're not getting completely off topic. But as much as I would love to talk to you for hours, and it's getting to the point where I have to say, it's time to wrap this up. Unfortunately. But I do want our listeners to be able to connect with you and learn more about your work and your Intentional Mind podcast. I'll go ahead and put all of your contact information below. But is it Instagram that's the best place to get in touch with
Yeah,
you
you
on
can.
social media with
Yep.
that
At
podcast?
Yep, at Ang Barnard. That's the one I'm on the most. I also have an Intentional Mind podcast one. I barely go on that one. So at Ang Barnard, that would be the best way. And then just listening to the podcast if you're interested in this intentional energy type of work. I talk about that all the time on the show.
Yes, yes, and like I said earlier, like, I am such a fangirl with you. You're, like, one of my first podcasts that I started listening to, and I absolutely love. Like, you're the one that I listen to every single week, so
Oh, thank you.
I
Feel so good, Michelle. And I love
Yeah.
the wisdom that you have to offer around systems. And I'm excited to dive into that more because I do feel like having systems is key for you to design the life that you want. Everybody you know that is
Mhm,
successful, they have a system and they also are very intentional with whatever they're creating. Like you're a big repurposer of content, like they make the most out of whatever they do. So I just feel like I would love to
mhm,
learn more about that too. So I think we're all here. We're all here with special gifts and we're all called to help each other. And I'm excited like in
mhm.
your
Yeah.
presence.
Aw, thank you. And Ange has been nice enough to give us her energy communication guide. So if you guys, I'll put that also down below in the show notes. So if you need that little energy when you're going to create your content, make sure you go ahead and grab that guide. But thanks, Ange, so much for your time. I really, really appreciate having you here today with me.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yay! Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found this episode valuable and learned some actionable tips that you can implement in your business so that you can feel accomplished and less stressed. If you enjoyed this show, please take a quick minute to share this with your business bestie, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps me reach more business owners just like you. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please reach out to me on my website. I've created a form just for you. Remember, with the right system and mindset, you can achieve the success your heart desires. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to chatting with you next time. I appreciate you and I hope you have a wonderful week. And don't forget, let's grow, friends.